Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. This is Understanding Drupal at the Center for Drupal 2019. The slides are already available, so if you want to follow along, you can already do it. My name is Mauricio Dinarte. You can find me as Dinarte online, Twitter, Drupal.org, pretty much everywhere. That's my email and my Drupal.org profile if you want to follow up. I am from Nicaragua. Beautiful country. We stay between 75 and 90 degrees all year round. So if you need to escape the cold winter, I have experienced that here in Boston. That's a pretty nice place to go. And if you feel adventurous, you can even go and do a lot of volcano-related activities. But if not, you can go to the website and you can have a virtual tour of how it is like to descend to a volcano. I am part of Aggregating. We are a distributed company, myself in Nicaragua, but we have people in Mexico, Germany, England, and here in the States. And I am very passionate about teaching, so this material is going to be available very soon online in that website, understanddrupal.com, in English, Spanish, and French. So if you speak any of those languages, you can get this content there. This is an outline of what we're going to cover. Let's get started. So let's talk about Drupal, but before specific Drupal concepts, let's talk about websites in general. So a website is comprised of one or more web pages. Let's say that you have a newspaper, the New York Times, you have one page for every specific article that's written, one page for the whole section, one page for contacting the newspapers, and so on. Point being is that in one website you have usually more than one web page, and each of them is comprised of different parts. And we all use the web in some way or another, and we are familiarized with some concepts. Maybe we can say there is a logo, or there is a header, there is a footer, there is a sidebar, and so on. So the idea of this session is to map any idea or concept that we already have from the web and translate those to Drupal and see how they are built inside Drupal. But first, why do we want to use Drupal anyways? I am going to show a couple of websites built in Drupal. The White House, it is no longer Drupal, but it was for a couple of years. And the point is that Drupal can be used for running government websites that demand really high security. For example, the government of Germany and the government of Australia, they all standardize on Drupal for their government websites. So if you go to any sites in those countries, it's very likely that it's going to be a Drupal site. Weather.com, this is the biggest site in Drupal. It receives about 1 billion visits per month. And it is not only the website, but also like applications. You can power your site to expose information through different APIs, through different mobile applications, and so on. And all of that is powered by Drupal in the back. The Grammys is also built on Drupal, and the point is that on the night of the event, everything is live streamed, and there is a lot of coverage in different formats: video, audio, text, articles, podcasts, and so on. So multimedia management at high scale is also possible in Drupal. Naranja Tradicional de Gandia. This is a website in Spain, a small shop that they use Drupal to sell online 6 products: tangerines, oranges, sweets, honey, marmalade, and lemons. So it is true that you can use Drupal to power really high-profile websites with huge demands and needs, but you can also use Drupal for your own project, big or small. And Tesla Motors also uses Drupal. As far as I know, we're not in the cars yet, but we hope to make it someday. But today, the website itself is built on Drupal. And some of the features of this website: high security, and this doesn't mean that Drupal is bulletproof. As everything on the web, you are exposed to vulnerabilities, but the benefit of using Drupal is that you have a dedicated team around the globe, about 50 of them, that they work to ensure Drupal security. If there is a new problem, and they follow a procedure, and they release a new security update. So the only thing that you need to do is check the updates and apply them as soon as possible. And by doing that, you are going to be safe from those vulnerabilities. Drupal can be translated to multiple languages: English, Spanish, French. You can even invent your own languages. There are some modules that allows you to translate Drupal to Pirate, if that's something that you like to do. Drupal can also run e-commerce websites, high traffic websites, By default, it comes with tools that makes it easier to build responsive websites. So how is the site going to look like in a TV, a desktop computer, a tablet, and a phone? So there are tools for that. And as I mentioned in the example of the Grammys, multimedia is also possible in Drupal. What is Drupal now? Depending on who you ask, Drupal is many things. The part that we're going to focus on today is Drupal as a CMS. CMS stands for Content Management System, and as such, it is possible that multiple people participate in the creation of content. So there is no need to share your credentials, your account, so someone else can create content on the website. Each of us, if we work for MIT, for example, can have an account, log in with our own account, and produce content as such. With Drupal, you can also establish publication workflows. Let's say that you are in a newspaper. Usually, before anything goes to the public site, there is a process that needs to be followed. Let's imagine that we have the journalist that actually go to the field, do the research, and writes the article. So that person has the permission to create new content, but that content will not be available right away. Then comes the editor. The editor's responsibility is not to create new material, but to revise and modify, edit anything that has been created already. So this second person only has permission to edit content, not create, not delete, only edit. And then let's say, for the sake of the example, that someone else, like the department chief, needs to approve everything before it goes live. This third person doesn't have permission to create or edit. It's just saying, yes, it's going live. It click a button and the article is published. So you can be very granular with the permissions that you have, and you can have as many steps as you need. It is up to you to define it. And we also have content revisioning. Content revisioning is keeping track of changes. So Drupal will keep track of when something changed, what exactly changed, who did the change. So let's say that something appears on the website that shouldn't be there. You can say, I want to revert to a previous revision. And by doing that, you will get the content as it was before. That comes turned on by default, so you don't have to do anything special to get it. And after reverting, you can see who and when did the change. And if it was something malicious, you can block that user, so that person doesn't have permissions to do any other changes on the website. And as I said before, you can have access controls as granular as you want. You can have a completely public website that everybody can see the content. You can say that some sections of your website are paid and you need to have an account in order to access them. Or you can have a completely locked down system. So anyone needs an account to be able to see any content on the website. So this is Drupal as a CMS and the focus of our session. But Drupal is also a framework. So you can also use it as a backend of your application. For example, if you want to create a mobile app, Drupal can serve as your content repository. And today it is very popular to have Drupal in a decoupled fashion. So again, Drupal is your content repository, and you can create an application for your frontend like Angular, Vue, or React, and present it as such. In my personal opinion, one of the biggest benefits of Drupal is the community. People from many countries, many languages, many abilities and backgrounds, we all participate and make Drupal better. So take advantage of the community that you have locally. It's very strong. Not only is this camp, but they meet monthly at least. So get involved. That's one of the best ways to learn Drupal, by getting to know other people that have the same interest, and that can help you if you have any question or need. So let's go over some basic concepts in Drupal. Something that we often hear is the term core. Core is the minimum required software to start a Drupal project. If you don't have Drupal core, it might be anything. It might be WordPress, it might be Django, it might be something else, but not a Drupal project. Among other things, Drupal core contains modules and themes, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And Drupal core serves as a framework to build on top of. For example, Drupal initially was not conceived to serve e-commerce websites, but because it had already user management, content management, and so many other things, some people decided that, hey, I can just write a little bit more of code and I can turn this application into my commerce platform. And today, those contributions are public, so it is easier to start if you need an e-commerce solution with Drupal. But at the point is you can extend Drupal to any use case that you need. Talking about modules and themes, modules add functionality to your website and themes control appearance. Let's say that you want that every time that you publish an article on the website, a tweet is sent and a post appears on your Facebook page. That's functionality. So you can configure a module to do that automatically without you having to do it manually. The themes control the appearance. This has to do with the layout of the website, how it will behave on different screen sizes. It has to do with colors, with font sizes, and so on. So if it is visual representation of the website, the responsibility is the theme. If it is functionality, the responsibility is the module. And contrary to other systems, we try to draw a clear line between the two: functionality modules, appearance themes. In addition to what Drupal core gives us, we have something that is called the Contrib Repository. And this is a collection of community-contributed modules, themes, and distributions. So anyone here, like you and me, can provide extra functionality for Drupal and make it available for the whole community to use. So that's the Contrib Repository. In a Drupal site, you are very likely to use something from the Contrib Repository because there are many good options there. And the analogy of having the Legos there is that the Contrib repositories serve as Lego pieces. You put together, using different modules, the functionality that you need. We said that Drupal is a content management system, so content is the focus of the whole application. What is content? In Drupal, the most popular term that you're going to hear is a node. A node is a piece of information that can tell a story by itself. And it is used to describe something. Let's imagine that we have a car. We can say what is the year, the color, the make, the model, how many windows, how many doors, the type of fuel, and so on. So in the same way that we can describe a car in real life, we can use a node inside Drupal to describe this object. The same way that you can describe tangible things, you can describe non-tangible things. Like, for example, this is an article on the website. An article will have a title, we have an author, a publication date, it will have the content itself. If you were describing an event like this, the same for Drupal, it will have a date, a location, a price, and so on. So you can use a node to describe anything in the website itself, and that you can present to the end user. So we talk about cars. Can we have more wheels, please? Sure. In your website, you can have as much content as you need. Let's say you have motorcycles, tricycles, cars, and so on. So in real life, there are some properties that are unique for each type of object. For example, in a motorcycle, it doesn't make sense to ask how many windows it has, because it doesn't have any. As far as I know, motorcycles cannot go in reverse. So in real life, both motorcycles and cars are very different, very distinct, and we use different concepts for them. In Drupal, we do the same, and the way to do it is using content types. A content type is an abstraction that allows you to group together nodes that share some functionality or characteristics and that describe the same idea. You can say, I will have a content type for cars, I will have a content type for motorcycles, I will have a content type for articles, I will have a content type for events, and so on. Anything that you want to describe, you can have a content type for that. And the content type is a template to collect information. So for the car, you are going to collect year, make, model, and so on. For the event, you are going to collect price, location, the agenda, and so on. So once you collect the information through this template, you can use that information for management. Let's say I want to show only cars, I want to show only events in this particular page of my website. One important relationship between nodes and content type is that every node is of one and only one content type. So you can have one node that is of type article, one node that is of type basic page, one node that is of type car. The node always needs to have a content type associated with it. And the content type itself usually is going to have more than one node. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have one content type that only has one node or two nodes. If that happens, try to combine different content types in a way that allows you to have many. And the reason is the more content types you have, the more maintenance is going to be required on the website. So keep the content types numbers as low as possible, but you have the flexibility to choose how many you will want. And in this image, the blue circles representing the nodes, they have numbers. And if you look around, there is no number that is repeated. The reason is Drupal needs a way to keep track of every piece of information, and it assigns something that is called node ID, or NID for short, and that is a numeric identifier that will never be repeated on the website, and it allows Drupal to specify, to identify each piece of content. So with nodes and content types, we are able to say, I want to see only cars, for example. But let's say that this is a dealer, and they are selling cars, and a client comes in, and the client is looking for something specific. Let's say a Toyota Yaris Red 2010. How can you allow that user in your website to do those specific searches? Nodes and content type does not suffice. So the next level of abstraction, in this case, are fields. And fields are awesome. They are very powerful and very flexible. So let's see what can we do. Anybody here can raise your hand if you have ever used either Facebook or Twitter? Some people. So let's think about Facebook. In Facebook, you have a text box where you can write a poem, when you can write a run, when you can add images, videos, happy faces, emojis, and so on. Let's say that this car dealer, has a Facebook page, and they have one post in the page for every car that they have. If they have 10,000 cars in inventory, someone coming to the Facebook page will have a hard time trying to find the car that they're looking for, because the information is not consistent. In Facebook, you have free text possibilities. You can enter whatever you want, and that might come with inconsistencies and just being able to find something useful by free text, it's really hard. So fields try to address this. Another thing is that the data can be inconsistent. If you say a date, okay, I'm going to write November 19, 2015, for example, or I'm going to use the abbreviation of the month, or I'm going to use numbers, not letters, for the month. For the year, I might use 2 instead of 4 digits. For the separator, I'm going to use dashes instead of slashes. In Nicaragua, for example, we put the month first, and we put the day first, and the month comes second. So when you have free text, you're allowed to do this because there is nothing enforcing you to keep consistency on the data that you enter. Also, you can have invalid data. Let's say, how old are you? Minus 10 years old. When is your birthday? February 31st. That doesn't exist. What is the price? You have the US dollar symbol, but the currency is spelled as euros. Your email, not a real email, it's missing an @ sign. And what is your phone number? Hi, I'm beautiful, happy face. That's not even a number. And again, if you have just like a free text box where you can enter whatever you want, invalid and inconsistent data can make its way into your system, and you don't want that. So, all of these things make Drupal cry. If you want to make Drupal happy, the recipe is using fields. So when you have fields, you can specify validation criteria. For example, I will not allow a car to be submitted in my website if there is not an image for that car. You can, if you are uploading images, you can define which format to use. For example, if you don't want GIF, like animated pictures, you just go to a setting and say, I am not allowing GIF, and people will not be able to do it. You can set maximum and minimum resolutions for the image. You can say maximum file size, and so on. Fields are associated with a type, so those validations are for image types. But you can also have a number, like for price of the event. You can say, again, this price field is required. The minimum is 0 because, okay, I can give an event for free, but I'm not going to pay people to come to my event. So I specify a validation criteria of 0. And because we are here in the States, we use US dollar, so I can define a prefix and a suffix to make it easier for the person entering the content to know which currency to use. So all of this is possible with different type of fields, and there are many: images, numbers, phone numbers, email addresses, and so on. With this, Drupal starts to get happy, and if you want Drupal to love you, you do it like this. For every piece of information that you want to store, you use a field, and you need to select the right type of field because it will come with the right type of validation. Let's say in the event example, one field for the date, one field for the price, one field for the number of people that can attend, and so on. The fields are attached to the content type. Before I said that the content type is my template to collect information, and this is how content types are related to fields. And the content type is like the container, and you attach fields to say, I want to collect this, this, and that. So that's the relationship between the two. Fields are also very flexible in the way that you can enter information into the system. Let's say that we want to store an address. You can say, just write the address as you would in Google Maps, for example, or I can say, enter the latitude and longitude, and I will figure it out. I can present the user with a map and ask them to click, or similar to PDF, Word documents, and so on, there are specific file types that store geographical information. So I can present a file upload field, and someone uploads a KML file, and I get the information from that file to identify the location and use it in my system. And in the same way that we can collect data in multiple formats, we can present data in multiple formats. And the way that the information came in doesn't have to be the way that the information comes out. Let's say that when collecting, I request an address, and when presenting, I use a map. So internally, Drupal is able to do those transformations of how the information is presented. And also, you can aggregate the information that you have already collected. So this is a Drupal website called Drupal. It's a collection of events happening all year round, all over the world. In this example, for example, they created a content type called events, where it has a title, a location, a type of event, if it is a DrupalCamp, a DrupalCon, a meeting, and so on. So they are using all that information that is aggregated and plotted on the map with different markers. One interesting thing about this particular use case is that the markers contains two types of information. One is the location, like latitude and longitude, and that's how they appear on the map, but also they are color-coded. So you can combine information from two different fields, the location and the type of event, into one single marker. So again, the idea is that you can aggregate data, and once you have that information in your system, you can combine it any way you want to present it in different formats. In this case, two fields are used to represent one pointer on the map. And additionally, fields can be shown or hidden individually. When you have your content type, let's say with 10 different fields, you are not forced to show the 10 fields to the end user. You can say, I'm going to show only 9 or only 8. Let's say that Design for Drupal is a Drupal website, and they have one node for each session to describe the session. Inside that node, there is a field that says how many people attended the session. That is important information for the organizing team, to plan for future events. But us, individuals or attendees, we don't necessarily need that information. So then the information can be collected, but we never see it. It's only shown to selected users or type of users. So you have that flexibility to mix and match and present only what you want by cherry picking specific information. These are some examples of field types. You have fields for one line. You can also have multi-line fields. That's in Drupal, there is a difference between one line and multi-line. You can have images, URLs, phone numbers, dates, tags, and the one that says established in 2006, even though you see text there, that field is actually a number field. Why? Because year is a number and we want to enforce validation criteria. What we did in this case is that we prepended some text to go along with the information of the field itself. But we can use a number field to force that when a company was established, for example, we don't get text. So why are fields awesome? Because they allow us to structure the information that is going to be stored on the website, and we can use the fields themselves to display, filter, and sort that information. The sorting parts we're going to cover in a moment. So far we have talked about nodes, content types, and fields. And usually that is used to create the center of the website, like the main content. We still have things around. What are those things that are around? Usually those are blocks. So what is a block? Block is a container of extra information that goes along the main content of the site. Blocks are placed in something that is called theme region. What is a theme region? If you install Drupal by default, it comes like with a blue shade. There is a theme called Bartik, and that Bartik theme defines a lot of regions. In this case, they are shown in yellow. A block, if you want a block on the right sidebar, you put it in the region that is called sidebar second. If you want a block in the footer, you have a footer fifth region. If you want to highlight something, you have the highlighted region, and so on. The point being is that the theme, remember that the theme is the one responsible for controlling appearance. The theme is going to determine how many regions are going to exist, where they are going to be placed, and what is going to be the behavior. For example, a theme can decide if nothing is placed in any of the sidebar, I am going to collapse them. By collapsing them, that means hiding them from view and expanding the main content to use 100% of the width of the website. And all of this behavior and appearance is controlled by the theme. If you change the theme, that theme will come with new regions and it will come with new behavior. So you need to understand how your specific theme works in order to be able to place content in the right places. But going back to blocks, blocks can be static or dynamic. Static is when they display the information the same or almost the same all the time. For example, if you have a copyright text, copyright 2019, that's not going to change throughout the whole year. So that can be described as a static block. Or if you have sponsors for your event and you want to highlight a banner in every page, that's a static block. But you can also have dynamic content via blocks that changes regularly. For example, the latest blog post on your site. If you write a new blog post every day, that section is going to be changing every day. If you have a blog that shows the newest products in your store and you add a new product every hour, that blog is going to be changing the information to present. So you can have these two types. Blogs also can enforce visibility by different ways. For example, I can say this blog is only going to be available for articles. This blog is only going to be available for events, for cars, and so on, based on content type. You can also do it based on language or based on pages. When you do it by pages, that means like the URL or the path. This blog is only going to be available in my front page, only going to be available in my contact page. It is going to be available everywhere except in the about page. So you can also use your path to define logic. You can also do it by roles. We're going to talk that later. But basically, this is where concepts start to combine. You are doing blog placement based on other rules, for example, the content type. If you have an article, you might have a blog that says more articles written by the same person. But that blog doesn't make any sense in the context of an event because you will not have more articles written by the same event. So you have the flexibility to decide when and where the blogs are going to appear. The blogs can also be aware of their environment. As I said before, if you have more posts by the same author, when the blog itself is going to be displayed, it is going to read, okay, I am being rendered in the context of Article 5. Article 5 was written by Benjamin, so I'm going to load more articles by Benjamin. If now I am showing Article 7, who was written by Mickey, now I'm going to render more articles written by Mickey. So you can fetch information from the page that you are being presented to change what the blog itself is going to show. And similar to content types and nodes, blogs can have fields. So everything that I talk about fields, it is also possible for blogs. Let's say that I have a special offer blog where it has a title, a description, an image, and an expiration date. And I'm going to use this blog to show this special offer in my website all the time until the expiration date arrives. So that's also possible. Fields are also can also be attached to blogs. Now the next concept is views. Views is very big. We can talk the whole day about views. There are courses, books that talk about this topic in depth. I'm going to just summarize it in 2 slides. A view is a listing of information. Remember that we already collected all the data via nodes and using content types and fields. Now that the information is collected, we want to present it to the user. And one way to do it is using a view. So I can create a view to show nodes, to show users, to show comments, to show taxonomy terms, to show files, and so on. Anything on my website that is content, I can present it to the user using a view. And the way that this works is that when you create a view, it will scan your whole website for the content that you want to present, and then you get to choose how to present it. For example, you can have an HTML table, an RSS feed, a PDF document, a CSV or Excel document, a map, a JSON export, and so on. The same content can be presented in multiple formats at the same time, and this is one of the benefits and flexibilities of using views, that you get to choose how to present the information. This is an example. Assuming that we have cars, we have this main content of the website, and we have a view that shows the plate, the year, the make, the model, an image of the car, the color, the type of transmissions, and the type of fuel. One thing to remember in general in Drupal is that, again, the information might come in some way and might be presented in a different way. Internally, this content type has separate fields for year, make, model, and plate. But when creating the view, I am combining those 4 fields into one single column. So that is possible. Something else that you might notice is that the images of the cars are kind of similar in format, size, and aspect ratio. That's something else that you can enforce with Drupal. There is a system called image styles, so that if you upload images in different resolutions, different formats, different sizes, they can be pre-processed so that when presented, they behave and are seen in a similar format. When talking about views and listings in general, we tend to associate a list of 2 or more elements. But there are some cases where having a list of 1 element also makes sense. For example, in the top left, I have a view that is showing only 1 element. And if you read that label, it says random car. So in this case, every time that this page reloads, a new car will appear. And that can be created using a view that shows an element randomly and only 1 at a time. This might also be useful, for example, if you want to show the most popular event, the most commented blog post, and so on. when you have the most, the best of something, you can have a view of one element that still makes sense. Something else that views can do for us is that, let's say that we show this table, which was created using a view, to my end users, but I want to give them the flexibility to further refine the information that is going to be shown. So between the table itself and the title that says cars, there are a list of fields. Those are called exposed filters inside my view. And I can say, I only want to see cars of year 2015. I only want to see make Toyota. I only want to see model Yaris, and so on. And I can also define how the sorting of the page is going to appear by year, ascending or descending. So by combining views with contextual filters, I give the option for my end user to control how the information is going to be presented. In the end, the format is going to be the same, a table with 5 columns, 1 picture of the image, and so on. But the information itself is going to be filtered down to whatever the user selected. And exposed filters is a combination also of fields. You can only have exposed filter if you created a separate field in the content type, when you created the car content type in this example. So that's why understanding the different concepts is important, because they allow you to foresee your needs, and then you create your templates, your content types with the fields that you're going to require in the long run. So why so much theory? Why do we need to know all of this? In Drupal, we love nests. We love nesting markup, we love nesting objects when you are a programmer, and we also love nesting concepts. So all of these that we have seen so far apply for anything that you see on a Drupal site. Let's think for a moment of more articles written by the same author. This is probably the most important slide of the whole presentation, because we're going to explain how different concepts apply for one piece of content on the website. These more articles written by the same author needs to be placed somewhere. That somewhere is the theme region. So let's say I'm going to show it in the right sidebar. Then the information itself is a blog, because blogs are used to display extra information to go along with the main website. Because I am showing more articles, that's a list of something, that's a list of nodes. So the list was created using views. Each element in the list is a specific node, like the article itself. And for each article, we are going to show the title, the publication date, and a brief summary of the article itself. So one piece of information in my website is already the combination of 5 different concepts. And you can swap and combine these concepts as you need. For example, you can have a view that instead of showing nodes, you show users. And then you show the name of the user, the birth date, and so on. You can have a blog that was not created using views at all. It's just like a static blog. And the point being, you need to understand the different concepts, because that allows you to know how they were built. And if at some point you need to change them, you can go to the right page in the administration of the website to make that change. So we already talked that the main content of the website usually is a node. It can also be a view, and in some cases it can be something else, like the output of a module in Drupal. For example, if you have the web form module installed, you can have a page that is a web form, and that is not neither a node or a view. But those are the 3 options. The main content is almost always a node, sometimes a view, and in some particular cases, the output of a particular module, like the contact module for the contact page, or the web form module if you have a form in your website. That's the main content. Everything else around are blogs, and those blogs can be static, some of them, and some of them can be created using views and so on. So again, the idea is to map whatever we know already to Drupal concepts. And if you know if this is a node, if this is a view, if this is a content type, and so on, when you go to the administration of the site, you will be able to identify where to go to make any change. To wrap up, let's talk briefly about other concepts. What is a user? A user is any visitor to my website. And depending on who is the visitor, they will be able to see different type of content, different information, and they will be able to interact with the website in different manners. Drupal can handle as many users and credentials that you need. For example, let's say I have in this website, one user is Mauricio. The user has a username, an image, a description, and you can attach fields, so I can have the birthday, the where it is located, and so on. One of the things that the user has is language preference and time zone preference. So by doing that, if your website is translated to multiple languages, the user is able to see the content in their own language or their language of preference. And if you have, let's say that this event were being live streamed, and it was set to start at 10 in the morning Eastern time, and someone in the Pacific Coast wants to connect, if they set their time zone to, San Francisco, for example, the calendar will display the event at 7 in the morning, and then, Drupal is able to do transformations not only in terms of language, but also in terms of time zones. And that is something that each user can set in their preferences. Related to users is the concept of role. And a role is simply a collection of permissions. By default, Drupal comes with 3 roles. Anonymous user, that is like if you go to New York Times, unless you work for New York Times, you are an anonymous user. Someone who just go to consume the content but doesn't log in to create or interact with anything else. The authenticated user is an experience like Facebook or Twitter. When you have your user account, you log in and then you can start posting content. And the administrator, that is the person who can do anything on the website. And you need to be careful and mindful to who you assign this role, because they can literally do anything and take down the whole site if they want to. But Drupal is very flexible and you have options. You can create custom roles and as many roles as you need. Again, the recommendation is to keep the number low, because the more roles that you have, the more maintenance is for the site administrator. A permission is just a check, a Boolean, a yes or no, if some operation can be performed on the website. For example, is someone able to create content of type article? Is someone able to post comments? Is someone able to use the site-wide contact form? So the permission is just saying yes or no to a question. And how do these things relate to each other? So if I have Mike and I want to give Mike permissions to write articles on my website, the way that you do it is that you create a user for Mike, you create a role, let's say the role editor, and you assign permissions to create content to that role. And then the way is you assign permissions to roles and roles to users. And by doing that, you enable people to have different relationship with your website, to delete, to add, to modify content, and so on. Users can have multiple roles, and in the end, the things that they can do on the website will be the sum of all the things that the different roles grant them access to. Another concept are menus. So menus are a collection of links to navigate on your website, and menus can be hierarchical. For example, the menu at the top is like single level, only one level, home, services, blogs, about, and contact. But you can go really crazy with menus and have sub-menus and put notes and put videos and do crazy stuff like that. I don't recommend it, but if you want to do it, there is a module called TV Mega Menu that you can use to do something like the one in the bottom. But in the end, menus is just a way to navigate on your website, a collection of links to navigate on the website. Another concept is taxonomy. So taxonomy is kind of a scary word, but in the end, it's just a way to categorize the content in your website. And there are only 2 things that you need to know about taxonomies: vocabularies and terms. Vocabulary is just a container, and terms are the specific elements. For example, if you have a vocabulary called fruits, the vocabulary is just the name, and the terms is apple, strawberry, orange, and grapes. So you have 4 taxonomy terms in one taxonomy vocabulary. Similar to nodes and blocks, vocabularies can also have fields. So in this case, I added an image field so that in addition to having the title of the term, I also have a image associated with it. And vocabularies can be hierarchicals. Let's say the living organisms are categorized by kingdom, phylum, class, and so on and so on. So humans, as far as I know, we're animals. For that, I think, mammalia, and 17 levels deep, we are Homo sapiens or something like that. And you can use a Drupal vocabulary to have this kind of structure on your website. Some real-life example, if you want to do pet categorization, you can use a taxonomy vocabulary for that. And also other cases, you can tag your blog post with a taxonomy term. And by doing that, Drupal will create automatically a page for every taxonomy term that is going to present all the notes, all the articles that are tagged by that specific term. You can also say, I'm going to tag this event with the category migrations or theming or React or Drupal and so on. And at the bottom of the article, you can use those terms to show related content. There is a module called Similar by Terms that gives you this functionality. You can also use taxonomy terms to create editorial access controls. Let's say that you create a taxonomy term that resembles the hierarchy of your organization by department. This is accounting, this is finances, this is human relationships, and so on. So you can assign a term for each of your users. And depending on that term that they have associated, they have permissions on a specific section of my websites. And a module that can help with that is word-based access. And you can also, because you can attach fields to taxonomy terms, you can attach geographical information. So you can have a lot of events and tag them, let's say, by Boston, San Francisco, Denver, and so on. And you can then plot them in a map. And using the taxonomy terms, you will know where to place the marker because you added some fields, including location information. In Drupal 8, you don't need extra modules to do that. If you want to do that in Drupal 7, there is a module called Location Taxonomize that can help with that. Again, different concepts, and in Drupal, we're going to combine them in many different ways to create the page that you see. So some questions that really nobody asked, but they are very common concerns. There is a saying in Drupal that every time that you hack core, God kills a king. And what does it mean to hack core? Hacking core means modifying the code that you download. You are never supposed to do that. Oh, if I only change this line, it will do exactly what I need. Don't do that. That's a really bad idea. Why? Because remember that Drupal is going to release updates from time to time. The way to apply the updates is to delete the old code and put the new one. When you do that, you are deleting in changes. And if you don't remember what you changed, or if the API itself was modified, then your change might not work anymore. So don't do that. Instead, you can watch this presentation that explains how to extend Drupal or modify Drupal to your specific needs without having to modify code. And this is a front-end oriented conference. I presented in a previous edition a session called Tweak Recipes. And this, you can learn how to make Drupal show the information that you want, that you need. And this is more about theming. And with that, I highly encourage you to get involved with the community. In Boston, it's really great. Be part of something bigger. And let's build Drupal websites. Thank you very much. So that's my email. I would like your feedback in that form. If there are questions, maybe I have time for one or two. Otherwise, I will be around throughout the whole conference, so feel free to reach out to me. Okay, thank you very much.